Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
I have one. Some backstory that I can't greentext. I used to move back and forth from Japan and the US. My parents are divorced, so that's just how it worked out. This takes place in around 2005 in the Chiba region of Japan. I think it was definitely around early fall because I was getting home from track training and that was the season for it. B16. Mom is out of town with sister for her college stuff, coming back from the track training facility. Way out the way in unknown areas of town. A few train stations distance cost about 400 yen. I realize that I don't have enough to pay for the train. Begin to follow the track through town to get to a station I could afford to take back home. It's pretty late and the sun was already down. Freaking out because I think I'm lost. I just keep following the track while reassuring myself. My phone is dying. I forgot to charge it while at the facility. Not that I had anyone to call to pick me up. I was so bothered that I didn't notice that my footsteps sounded weird. My footsteps sound doubled, if that makes sense. After a second, the second set of footsteps veers off of rhythm until I can hear two distinct footsteps, mine and another. The second set of footsteps begins to sound more wooden. I used to say it sounded like high heels, but looking back, it was most likely wooden sandals. In Japan, people walking home at night isn't uncommon. It's an amazingly safe country to do so. I don't want to be rude, so I don't turn around to look. Passing every streetlight, I watch my own shadow appear from the side and swivel around me as I pass. Before I knew it, I saw a smaller shadow of a person behind me. The shadow was of a person with a weird haircut that stopped above their shoulder. I was thoroughly freaked out, so I found the nearest 7-Eleven and walked inside. I felt awkward just loitering, so I used what little money I had to buy an energy drink. I stared out the window of the 7-Eleven, but I never saw anyone pass. After an awkward amount of time with the store clerk, I grew a pair of balls and started back up on my journey. I no longer had any cash left for the train. I would have to just walk the entire way home. After about 5 minutes of walking the second set of footsteps and the mystery shadow returned, I'm too piss-scared to turn around, so I don't turn around. I finally reached an area I recognized. It was an old red light district that was remade into a low-class gambling district. At the end of my wits, I sprinted to the glimmering streets. For a good 7 blocks in the bright, obnoxious lights and sounds of the pachinkos, I lost the shadow. I now knew where I was going, but still it was dark, and I already passed all the night business. The following walk after that felt wrong. Some roads felt way longer than I knew. I've walked them countless times, but suddenly it felt like they were endless. And I don't mean I was tired. I felt like I was moving forward. I tried to sprint further, but I just kept running in the same stretch as if it never ended. I still haven't turned around. I was still too scared. The shadow and footsteps were gone, but I undeniably felt like I was being watched. I felt like I was carrying a weight. The only thing that finally made my walk end was a police box. The worst part about it was the fact that I knew I should have passed it ages ago, but somehow I hadn't. Instead of passing it, though, I walked in. The officers were really nice when I explained my situation. I never told them about the ghosts. They drove me home in a cop car. They dropped me off and walked me to my door. I offered them some tea and they accepted, but quickly left after thanking me, and I thanked them. As I sat down on my little mat in front of my little TV, I looked back towards my door. In the little window next to my door, I swear on everything I can swear on. I saw wind pairs of eyes quickly shrank away. They made no noise. I went to bed with all the lights on.
Visit Japan with a small group of trusty Weeb friends. Have a great time going south from Tokyo, especially Kyoto and Osaka. Japanese trains are truly a wonder and everyone is incredibly friendly. Food and drink is top tier too, so we're a merry bunch. Find an amazing herb buffer at an Osaka traditional tea house. No one objects, so we get it. Landlady is, naturally, really good to us too, and with a pleasant smile. She takes us around the house and offers us a bit of her tea. It really feels nice and warms our spirits, since it was raining outside. Our room is a traditional room as well. Smells like wood, the good kind. Clean walls, futon on the floor, and a really neat samurai armor exposed on the wall, next to us. Unusual but great. After a night playing cards, we get to sleep. Futon thing is pretty comfy all things considered, so I fall asleep fast. I have a really weird dream with some disembodied Japanese masks floating in the darkness. Kind of like Japanese-themed shadow people, but just the faces. The dream is just that, the masks floating ominously and dark smoke around them. They looked like the Onibi yokai from Nioh, but I hadn't played the game at that time, so I didn't know. Think nothing of it, years pass. Chatting with my friends about the trip, mentioned the spoopy dream I had in that tea house.
Holy shit, Anon, really? You're not kidding, right? What the hell?
It's just a dream, but no, I'm not. Why?
I had the same dream in Kyoto.
Not too spooky, but definitely weird. I remember some Japanese Anon Greentexts about spirits there. It was a really good thread.
The year is 1185. Minamoto no Yoshitsune stands in the prow of his boat as it speeds through Daimotsu Bay in the province of Setsu, modern-day Hyogo Prefecture. Yoshitsune is fleeing from his brother Minamoto no Yorimoto, who recently seized power from the Heike clan and declared himself shogun. Yorimoto sees his brother as a potential rival. By exiling himself from the capital, Yoshitsune hopes to calm his brother's jealousy and paranoia. The omens for the trip had not been auspicious. Yoshitsune had been forced to leave behind his mistress, the famed dancer Lady Shizuka. But during a farewell dance, she performed in his honor. Her masterpiece Shirabyoshi, also known as The Parting, her headdress had toppled to the floor. The seas were rough, and Yoshitsune thought of delaying his flight. But his faithful retainer, the mighty Musashibo Benkei, had pressured Yoshitsune into leaving without delay and braving the tumultuous seas. Delay could mean Yoshitsune's death at the hands of his brother's soldiers. At first, the voyage went well despite the roughness of the seas. Then things changed. As the boat left behind the shores of Daimotsu Bay and headed towards the Yoshino Mountains, a mist rose up without warning, swallowing his ship and cutting off all light. From the sea arose great waves that battered Yoshitsune and his men, tossing their ship around like a toy. Yoshitsune's ship was stuck in the sea, unable to advance or retreat, as if in the grip of some supernatural power. Looking over the side of the boat revealed the truth. This was no sudden squall. Hidden in the depths of the waves were the white bodies of the warriors of the Heike clan, recently destroyed by Yoshitsune himself. Skeletal hands swarmed about the ship, holding it fast in the water. The ship was going nowhere but to hell. One of the ghostly warriors leapt from the ocean onto the ship. At a glance, Yoshitsune knew who it was, Taira no Tomomori, dread general of the Heike. His eyes blazed red with wrath as he swung his massive naginata long spear and maneuvered to engage Yoshitsune. Remarkably, Yoshitsune betrayed not the slightest glimmer of fear. He calmly drew his own sword and prepared to face off with this dead warrior. The warrior monk Musashibo Benkei knew that the day would not be carried by skill at arms. No matter how deadly his master Yoshitsune's blade was, it could not cut dead flesh. But Taira no Tomomori's naginata had no such concern. Bento dropped to his knees and began to chant and earnest prayer to the gods. He called on the 5 directions, the deities of the north, south, east, west, and the mysterious 5th and unknowable direction. While Yoshitsune's steel held off Taira no Tomomori's attack, and the rest of the Onryo of the defeated Heike clan continued to assault their ship, Bento fought a spiritual war of faith and devotion, pitting his prayer against the power of the dead. Such was the earnestness of Benkei's spirit and the devoutness of his prayer that the waves and mist dissipated as quickly as they had arisen. The vengeful ghosts of the Heike vanished, unable to stand against the protective power of the gods. Their attack was over, and Yoshitsune and his men peacefully continued their flight from Kyoto.
Alright, listen up. I came to this board for the first time in a while only to find you all wallowing in your own fairy tales and schizo delusions. I have a couple hours to kill, so I'm going to drink and post my green text. It's long, so I'll do it in parts. Last year, winter in Japan. My girlfriend and I decided to take a weekend holiday. She loves quiet places with nobody, me too. Plan a trip to Izu, a peninsula near Tokyo with coastal towns that nobody goes to in the winter because it's too cold to swim. We get there early and go around and explore the town. She gets bored and asks if we can go hiking. Sure, but I don't know where we can hike.
There's hills all around. We can just hike up one of them.
Hell no, read too much creepy stuff on the internet, so I cowered out and go to an information center. An old lady there says there's not much hiking but gives me a map with some trails on it. We go to the nearest one. The entrance to the trail is literally at some random car park. Screw it, we're already here. It's full of dead leaves and twigs going up a steep incline. Hike this god-forsaken trail for about half an hour. Bust out my joint I kept in a portable ashtray. We hike up off the trail and found a log to sit on and smoke. Apparently we weren't the only ones because there was an empty bottle of whiskey there. Continue hiking and see this abandoned building. Kick related. We both checked out this crazy building to look at all the graffiti. We laugh like idiots. We walk along for a bit. The trail seems to follow the perimeter of the building. Come across a path that leads down a steep slope into the grounds of the building. This is where I took the picture. Path is overgrown with weeds. At one point there is tall grass completely blocking the way. Tell girlfriend we should go.
No, Anon, I don't want to. You can't even go down the path.
She gets anxious when she smokes, so I tell her I'll go take some photos and come back and get her if she doesn't want to. Start down the path.
Anon, I'm scared. Don't leave me here.
Okay, then come down the path. It's totally fine. See. She starts walking down slowly. We get to the part with tall grass. I try to take some pictures, but the angle sucks. Tell girlfriend that's it and we can go now.
WTF, you made me come down here and you don't even want to go further.
There's grass that comes up to my waist.
Oh my god, Anon, you're such a coward sometimes.
She pushes aside some of the grass and jumps over the rest.
Come on, Anon, just do what I did.
I thought you were scared. Stumble awkwardly through grass, get cut on some of it. Get to the bottom, there's an old stairwell rusting away. Tick related. Tell girlfriend we should go on the stairwell.
No babe, it's all rusty. What if we fall down? We don't even have a signal here.
Flip-flopping on me again. Alright, I'll go. It is almost broken. You can see the frame it was built on. Little bits of rust and stuff flake away whenever I take a step. Get to the second floor landing. See babe, it's okay. She refuses to come. I come down and lead her by the hand to the stairway. She takes a few steps and soon is running up and down like a gazelle. I take some photos of her.
Hey babe, we can get in from here.
She's on the second floor stairwell where I stopped earlier. Things start to get weird from here. From the second stairwell you can jump onto a balcony-like area. It's a bit of a jump as the balcony isn't on the same level or near the stairwell. We have to jump down and across onto it. Girlfriend does some Mission Impossible stunts and jumps down. I start to chicken out.
Come on, Anon, you can do it.
I jump, land safely, but because I'm high I can feel my blood rushing. Feels good though. I slide open the tatami door. Inside was a filthy mess. An old futon that had gone brown from dirt, random old clothes, hardcore porno mags and cheap alcohol cans and glasses everywhere. Kick related. I take more photos of the room. Suddenly I get a weird feeling that makes the hairs on my skin stand on end. Girlfriend grabs my arm.
Did you hear that?
No, but I felt something weird.
There's someone here. Listen.
She's whispering now. We stand around in silence listening, but I can't hear anybody.
Babe, we should leave. I don't think we should be here.
Okay, let me just get some more pictures. Hold up my phone as I approach the door. The screen is black. I charged it earlier and was near full battery when we started the hike. Suddenly hear something from outside the room. Girlfriend freaks out and tugs my arm. Whispers louder.
Babe, let's go.
I ain't afraid of no ghost. Open the door, girlfriend clinging onto me. In the corridor, nobody was there. Suddenly a figure rounds the corner at the far end. It's a naked dude. Head bent down, looked like he was starving. Hair down to his ankles. Arms twice as long as anybody I've ever seen, down to his knees. Girlfriend screams. We're rooted to the spot in fear. Stammer out sorry, we'll be leaving in Japanese. He says nothing. Starts walking towards us. Freak out and run back to the balcony. Jump down onto the ground floor. Run back up the path in a blind panic. Run onto the trail at full speed, don't stop for about 10 minutes. Check the phone as we slow. It's working. Google Maps has us somewhere in the woods. No choice but to follow the trail. We eventually made it to a road. Follow it and get to the highway. As we walk back, completely shaken, we start talking about what we saw. High is fading. On the way back we saw the building again, this time on the other side of the road. Walk up to it while girlfriend stays on the safe side of the road. There's a sign. It was an elementary school. We walked back to town and stopped at the local supermarket. Buy some booze and fried food. Get back to our hotel and eat and talk. Both agree that what we saw couldn't have been human. Spend the rest of the holiday at tourist spots. Nobody believes us.
Long, long ago, there was a large plain called Adachigahara. in the province of MITZU in Japan. This place was said to be haunted by a cannibal goblin who took the form of an old woman. From time to time, many travellers disappeared and were never heard of more, and the old women round the charcoal braziers in the evenings, and the girls washing the household rice at the wells in the mornings, whispered dreadful stories of how the missing folk had been lured to the goblin's cottage and devoured, for the goblin lived only on human flesh. No one dared to venture near the haunted spot after sunset, and all those who could avoided it in the daytime, and travellers were warned of the dreaded place. One day as the sun was setting, a priest came to the plain. He was a belated traveller, and his robe showed that he was a Buddhist pilgrim, walking from shrine to pray for some blessing or to crave for forgiveness of sins. He had apparently lost his way, and as it was late he met no one who could show him the road or warn him of the haunted spot. He had walked the whole day and was now tired and hungry, and the evenings were chilly, for it was late autumn, and he began to be very anxious to find some house where he could obtain a night's lodging. He found himself lost in the midst of the large plain, and looked about in vain for some sign of human habitation. At last, after wandering about for some hours, he saw a clump of trees in the distance, and through the trees he caught sight of the glimmer of a single ray of light. He exclaimed with joy, "Oh, surely that is some cottage where I can get a night's lodging." Keeping the light before his eyes, he dragged his weary, aching feet as quickly as he could towards the spot, and soon came to a miserable-looking little cottage. As he drew near, he saw that it was in a tumble-down condition. The bamboo fence was broken, and weeds and grass pushed their way through the gaps. The paper screens which serve as windows and doors in Japan were full of holes, and the posts of the house were bent with age and seemed scarcely able to support the old thatched roof. The hut was open, and by the light of an old lantern, an old woman sat industriously spinning. The pilgrim called to her across the bamboo fence and said, "Oh, Bar-san, old woman, good evening. I am a traveller. Please excuse me, but I've lost my way and do not know what to do, for I have nowhere to rest tonight. I beg you to be good enough to let me spend the night under your roof." The old woman, as soon as she heard herself spoken to, stopped spinning, rose from her seat and approached the intruder. "I am very sorry for you. You must indeed be distressed to have lost your way in such a lonely spot so late at night. Unfortunately, I cannot put you up, for I have no bed to offer you and no accommodation whatsoever for a guest in this poor place." "Oh, that does not matter," said the priest. "All I want is a shelter under some roof for the night, and if you will be good enough just to let me lie on the kitchen floor, I shall be grateful. I am too tired to walk further tonight, so I hope you will not refuse me. Otherwise I shall have to sleep out on the cold plain." And in this way he pressed the old woman to let him stay. She seemed very reluctant, but at last she said, "Very well, I will let you stay here. I can offer you a very poor welcome only, but come in now and I will make a fire, for the night is cold." The pilgrim was only too glad to do as he was told. He took off his sandals and entered the hut. The old woman then brought some sticks of wood and lit the fire, and bade her guest draw near and warm himself. "You must be hungry after your long tramp," said the old woman. "I will go and cook some supper for you." She then went to the kitchen to cook some rice. After the priest had finished his supper, the old woman sat down by the fireplace, and they talked together for a long time. The pilgrim thought to himself that he had been very lucky to come across such a kind, hospitable old woman. At last the wood gave out, and as the fire died slowly down, he began to shiver with cold, just as he had done when he arrived. "I see you are cold," said the old woman. "I will go out and gather some wood, for we have used it all. You must stay and take care of the house while I am gone." "No, no," said the pilgrim. "Let me go instead, for you are old, and I cannot think of letting you go out to get wood for me this cold night." The old woman shook her head and said, "You must stay quietly here, for you are my guest." Then she left him and went out. In a minute she came back and said, "You must sit where you are and not move, and whatever happens, don't go near or look into the inner room. Now mind what I tell you." "If you tell me not to go near the back room, of course I won't," said the priest, rather bewildered. The old woman then went out again, and the priest was left alone. The fire had died out, and the only light in the hut was that of a dim lantern. For the first time that night, he began to feel that he was in a weird place, and the old woman's words, "Whatever you do, don't peep into the back room," aroused his curiosity and his fear. What hidden thing could be in that room that she did not wish him to see? For some time, the remembrance of his promise to the old woman kept him still, but at last he could no longer resist his curiosity to peep into the forbidden place. He got up and began to move slowly towards the back room. Then the thought that the old woman would be very angry with him if he disobeyed her made him come back to his place by the fireside. As the minutes went slowly by and the old woman did not return, he began to feel more and more frightened and to wonder what dreadful secret was in the room behind him. He must find out. "She will not know that I have looked unless I tell her. I will just have a peep before she comes back," said the man to himself. With these words, he got up on his feet, for he had been sitting all this time in Japanese fashion with his feet under him, and stealthily crept towards the forbidden spot. With trembling hands, he pushed back the sliding door and looked in. What he saw froze the blood in his veins. The room was full of dead men's bones, and the walls were splashed and the floor was covered with human blood. In one corner, skull upon skull rose to the ceiling, in another was a heap of arm bones, in another a heap of leg bones. The sickening smell made him faint. He fell backwards with horror, and for some time lay in a heap with fright on the floor, a pitiful sight. He trembled all over and his teeth chattered, and he could hardly crawl away from the dreadful spot. "How horrible!" he cried out. "What awful den have I come to in my travels? May Buddha help me or I am lost. Is it possible that that kind old woman is really the cannibal goblin? When she comes back, she will show herself in her true character and eat me up at one mouthful." With these words, his strength came back to him, and snatching up his hat and staff, he rushed out of the house as fast as his legs could carry him. Out into the night he ran, his one thought to get as far as he could from the goblin's haunt. He had not gone far when he heard steps behind him and a voice crying, "Stop! Stop!" He ran on, redoubling his speed, pretending not to hear. As he ran, he heard the steps behind him come nearer and nearer, and at last he recognized the old woman's voice, which grew louder and louder as she came nearer. "Stop! Stop, you wicked man! Why did you look into the forbidden room?" The priest quite forgot how tired he was, and his feet flew over the ground faster than ever. Fear gave him strength, for he knew that if the goblin caught him, he would soon be one of her victims. With all his heart, he repeated the prayer to Buddha. "Namu Amida Butsu, Namu Amida Butsu." And after him rushed the dreadful old hag, her hair flying in the wind, and her face changing with rage into the demon that she was. In her hand she carried a large blood-stained knife, and she still shrieked after him, "Stop! Stop!" At last, when the priest felt he could run no more, the dawn broke, and with the darkness of night, the goblin vanished, and he was safe. The priest now knew that he had met the Goblin of Adachigahara, the story of whom he had often heard but never believed to be true. He felt that he owed his wonderful escape to the protection of Buddha, to whom he had prayed for help. So he took out his rosary, and bowing his head as the sun rose, he said his prayers and made his thanksgiving earnestly. He then set forward for another part of the country, only too glad to leave the haunted plain behind him.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.